It was Christmas when my son confessed he hated my last name. I never imagined my own flesh and blood would make me feel like an outsider at my own dinner table. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would share. And if, for 1 second, you feel like this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me keep venting and sharing my story. It was December 24th at my house in Queens, New York, that cozy brick ranch I bought with the sweat of my hands 30 years ago. The aroma of the stuffed turkey drifted through the kitchen, mixing with the scent of the spiced cider that simmered slowly on the stove. My arthritic fingers had been working since 5 that morning, peeling potatoes, mixing the batter for the homemade yeast rolls, preparing the cranberry sauce with the recipe my grandmother taught me when I was only 12. The table was set with my best tablecloth, the hand-embroidered one that had been my mother's wedding gift. The crystal goblets I inherited from my Aunt Hope sparkled under the warm light of the dining room, and on each plate, I had placed a napkin folded into a lily shape, just as I had done every Christmas since James was a boy. My son James arrived at 7 in the evening with his wife Candace, and my 2 grandchildren Ethan, who was 13, and Chloe, 8. But he didn't arrive alone. He brought that attitude he'd acquired since starting at that high-flying investment firm in Midtown Manhattan. The way he looked at me, as if I were an uncomfortable relic of a past he preferred to forget. "Mom, we're here," James called from the doorway, without the warm hug he used to give me years ago. His suit was expensive, the kind that costs more than I spent on groceries for 3 months. The watch gleaming on his wrist was new, probably worth more than all my savings combined. Candace swept in behind him, checking her phone with that look of impatience she always wore when she came to my house. Her black dress was sleek, her designer bag hung from her arm like a status declaration. The children ran to me with more formality than affection, their hugs brief and mechanical, as if someone had drilled into them that it was the correct thing to do, even if they didn't mean it. "How are my darlings?" I asked, trying to fill the emotional void with forced enthusiasm. "Fine, Grandma," Ethan replied, but his eyes were already darting toward the TV, waiting for someone to turn it on. During dinner, as everyone silently ate my home-cooked meal, I tried to make conversation as I always did. I told them about my neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had been ill. I spoke about the new, young, charismatic priest at the parish. I mentioned seeing on the news that pharmaceutical stocks had soared this year, thinking James might be interested in the investment topic. That's when I decided to tell them the story my father had told me 1,000 times, about how our family name, Hayes, came from a lineage of honest factory workers in the Midwest who had lost everything in the Depression but had earned the respect of their community through hard work and dedication. Dad always said we carry a name of working people, of folks who never owed anybody anything, I said, pouring more spiced cider into the goblets. Their grandparents had a small fortune in land, and though they lost it all, they never lost their dignity. That's why I've always been so proud of— "Mom," James interrupted, placing his fork on the plate with a dry clink that cut the atmosphere like a knife. "We are not in the last century anymore." Silence spread across the table like a cold shadow. Candace smiled that false smile I knew so well, and my grandchildren kept eating without looking up. "I don't understand," I said, feeling my mouth go dry. "Look, Mom." James wiped his mouth with the napkin and looked me straight in the eye. "Stop telling the kids about your family history, okay? Your name sounds common, provincial. They go to private schools, they move in different circles. They don't need to be burdened with stories of people who failed." The words hit me like a slap. I felt the air rush out of my lungs, and a dull ache settled in my chest, right under my heart. "People who failed?" I whispered, unable to believe what I had just heard. "Look, Mom," Candace interjected, using that patronizing voice she adopted when she wanted to sound reasonable. "Times have changed. The children need successful role models, not stories about factory workers and farmers. James has built a solid portfolio. He has diversified investments. He handles significant capital. Why confuse them with the past?" I looked at my grandchildren, hoping to see some reaction, some indication that they disagreed. But Ethan remained focused on his plate, and Chloe played with her fork, as if the conversation didn't concern her. "But it is their history," I murmured. "It's where they come from. They come from us," James said firmly. From what we have built. Your last name, forgive me for saying this, sounds like failure. It sounds like people who never could get ahead. Candace nodded, taking a sip of the cider. Besides, with all due respect, when the kids arrive at school and say they are Hayes, it sounds, how shall I put it? It sounds ordinary, not like Hayes Harrington. Now that sounds like class. I sat there, feeling every word as a silent stab. The food I had prepared with so much love turned to ashes in my mouth. The lights of the Christmas tree I had carefully decorated seemed to mock me, blinking like cruel laughter. I just wanted them to know where they came from, I said, my voice cracking. Well, now they know, James replied. They come from a successful family that knew how to invest money well and build a solid future. They don't need anything more than that. The rest of the dinner passed in heavy silence. I served dessert, cleared the plates, did everything expected of me as the hostess. But inside, I felt like something had broken forever. When they left that night, after giving me those obligatory pecks on the cheek, I was left alone in my kitchen, surrounded by dirty dishes and the echo of their words. My name sounds like failure. People who never could get ahead. They don't need to be burdened with stories of people who failed. I sat in the chair where my father had sat so many afternoons, telling me about our family's honesty, the value of work, the importance of never being ashamed of our origins. And for the first time in my life, I felt ashamed of who I was. That night, while washing the dishes they had dirtied with my food, I made a decision that would change everything forever, but I didn't know it yet. The days following that Christmas were like walking on broken glass. Every morning I woke up hoping it had been a nightmare, but reality hit me again when I saw the dining table, still holding the Christmas cloth that no longer made sense to keep. James didn't call me for a week. The silence of his absence filled every corner like a ghost, reminding me of my new status. The embarrassing grandma. The one with the name that sounded like failure. I tried calling him on January 2nd. Candace answered the phone with that icy voice she had perfected for talking to me. Is James there? I asked, trying to sound normal. He's busy, Mrs. Hayes. Is it urgent? Mrs. Hayes. She didn't even call me Mom anymore. I just wanted to know if the children got back to school all right after the holiday. Yes, of course. They got back fine. James took them in the new BMW. You know, we have to keep up appearances at that school. The new BMW. It had surely cost more money than I had ever seen in my life. I wondered if he had used part of his father's inheritance to buy it, the inheritance I had relinquished so he could have it all. And how are they? Does Chloe still have that cough she had on Christmas? They are perfectly fine, Mrs. Hayes. Look, James is on a video conference with investors from Dallas. Something about hedge funds and Bitcoin. Important things, you know. Should I tell him you called? Important things. As if my concern for my grandchildren wasn't. No, it's not necessary. Just tell him. I miss them. Well, I'll tell him. She hung up without saying goodbye. I was left holding the phone, feeling the tears start to burn my eyes. When did I become an inconvenience to my own family? A week later, Ethan had a birthday. 13 years old. My oldest grandson, the one who used to run to me when he was little, shouting, "Grandma, Grandma," every time he saw me. I had prepared his gift weeks in advance. A biography of Abraham Lincoln I had found in an antique bookstore downtown, leather-bound, beautiful, and full of history. I thought he would like to learn about another man who had risen from humble origins to become someone important. I arrived at their house in Scarsdale at 5 in the afternoon, as Candace had instructed via text. The house was stunning, the kind that appears in architectural magazines, with a perfectly manicured garden and a fountain at the entrance. James's money had grown considerably in recent years, and it showed in every detail of their new life. I rang the doorbell and waited. Candace opened the door but didn't invite me in. "Ah, Mrs. Hayes, you're here." "I came for Ethan's birthday," I said, holding out the gift. Candace looked inside, as if consulting something. "There's a small issue. Some of Ethan's classmates are here, and their parents too. They are important people, you know. Perhaps it would be better if you came in through the kitchen, just to avoid any confusion." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. My own daughter-in-law was asking me to enter through the service door so as not to embarrass my grandson in front of his wealthy friends. Candace, I am their grandmother. I know, Mrs. Hayes, but you have to understand. These contacts are important for Ethan. If the parents see your name, your way of speaking, it could affect how Ethan is viewed at school, my appearance. What was wrong with my navy blue dress, my polished shoes, my freshly combed hair? I accepted. Good Lord, I accepted going through the kitchen as if I were the maid. I walked around the side of the house, feeling every step humiliate me a little more. The housekeeper opened the back door with a look of pity that broke my heart. Mrs. Hayes? How are you? Greeted Rosa, the woman who cleaned the house. Fine, Rosa. And you? We're hanging in there. Are you here for the boy's birthday? Yes, but it seems I'll be greeting him back here. Rosa frowned, clearly confused by the situation, but said nothing. She led me to the backyard, where the children were indeed playing at a ping-pong table. Ethan saw me arrive and approached, but not with the joy I expected. Hi, Grandma, he said, glancing toward the house as if he feared someone might be watching us. Happy birthday, my love, I said, extending the gift. I brought you something very special. Ethan took the gift and quickly unwrapped it, but his expression didn't change when he saw the book. A book? He asked, flipping through it without interest. It's about Abraham Lincoln. He was a man who came from very humble beginnings, like our family, but he became president. I thought you would like to know his story. One of the other boys approached and looked at the book over Ethan's shoulder. Who is that lady? He asked my grandson. Ethan took a few seconds to respond. That's my grandma, he mumbled, as if confessing something shameful. Oh, really? I didn't know you had another grandma. I only knew Grandma Harrington, your mom's mom, the one with the house in Greenwich and the convertible Mercedes. Grandma Harrington. Candace's mother, who lived in a mansion in Greenwich, who drove a convertible Mercedes, who took the children to expensive restaurants and bought them designer clothes. The rich grandma. The grandma they could be proud of. Yeah, I have too, Ethan replied, putting the book back in the box as if he wanted to hide it. And why isn't she inside with the other parents? The boy insisted. Ethan didn't know what to say. He stood there, holding the book, with shame painted on his face. In that moment, I understood with crystal clarity that it wasn't just James who was ashamed of me. My own grandchildren had learned to see me as something to be hidden. Well, my darling, I said, swallowing my tears. I should go now. Have a wonderful birthday. Thanks for the present, Grandma, Ethan said, but he was already turning toward his friends. Rosa walked me back to the kitchen door. Mrs. Hayes, she said softly, don't leave sad. The children don't understand yet. Do you think so, Rosa? I know what I see. Ethan asks about you all the time when he comes home. He asks if you called, if you're coming to visit. But the owners have been telling him not to mention you in front of visitors. Really? Yes, ma'am. The other day I heard Mrs. Candace telling him that when people ask about family, he should only mention the Harringtons. That he shouldn't talk about the Hayes because that confuses people. That confuses people. My last name confuses people. I left that house feeling like I had just buried a part of myself. On the drive back to Queens, I pulled over at a rest stop and cried until I had no more tears left. I cried for the grandson I had lost before he even realized he had lost me. I cried for the humiliation of entering the back door of my own son's house. I cried for the woman I had been, who apparently no longer had a place in this world. That night, sitting in my kitchen with a cup of chamomile tea in my hands, I picked up the phone and dialed the number of an old friend. Mr. Harrison? It's Eleanor Hayes. I need to talk to you about something important. Mr. Harrison had been my late husband's friend since college, an older, trustworthy man who had handled all our legal affairs for years. When I explained what I needed over the phone, his voice changed completely. Eleanor, are you sure about this? This is a very big decision. More sure than ever, Mr. Harrison. I need to protect what I've built. We agreed to meet the next day at his office downtown. I couldn't sleep that night, tossing and turning as I replayed every humiliation, every slight, every moment my own family had made me feel like an intruder in my own life. The next morning, while waiting for the local bus that would take me downtown, I received a call from Candace. "Mrs. Hayes, we need you to help us with something urgent." She didn't greet me. She didn't ask how I was. Straight to the point. "What do you need?" I asked, though I already knew the pattern. James has an incredible investment opportunity. Some of his partners found a Bitcoin venture that's yielding a 30% monthly return, but he needs initial capital. And, well, we need you to lend us $100,000. It's safe, Mrs. Hayes. In 6 months, we'll pay you back double. $100,000. Practically all my life savings. Candace, I don't have that kind of money. Oh, Mrs. Hayes, stop pretending. We know you have your savings. Besides, it's for your grandchildren's future. Don't you want Ethan and Chloe to have the best opportunities? The manipulation was so obvious it physically hurt. They were using my grandchildren as emotional blackmail to get money from me. "Let me think about it," I lied. "Think about it? Mrs. Hayes, the opportunity is now. The investors won't wait. James already told them his mother would support them. James had already told them, without consulting me, assuming I was his personal bank. I need time to review my accounts. Fine, but don't take too long. We need the cash tomorrow." Tomorrow. They didn't even give me a week to think about it. I arrived at Mr. Harrison's office with my heart pounding. His office smelled of old books and fresh coffee, an aroma that had always calmed me. The walls were covered with diplomas and photographs spanning decades of legal work. "Eleanor, it's good to see you, though I don't like the reason for your visit at all," he said, offering me a chair across his mahogany desk. "Mr. Harrison, I need to make major changes to my will. Are you sick? Is there something you haven't told me?" "No, I'm not sick. At least not in body. But I need to protect myself from my own family." I told him everything. The Christmas humiliation, Ethan's birthday, the call asking for money. The attorney listened without interrupting. "Eleanor, this is very painful. I never thought James would stoop to this. Neither did I, Mr. Harrison. But here we are. What exactly do you want to do?" "I want to change everything. I want James to find out what my last name is really worth, but when it's too late." Mr. Harrison looked at me over his glasses. "Eleanor, tell me the truth. Exactly how much are your total assets?" "More than they imagine." For the next 30 minutes, I revealed everything I had been hiding. The secret investments with my aunt's inheritance. The land I bought in Austin when no one knew it would be a tech hub. The pharmaceutical stocks I bought during the pandemic. The dollars I had purchased little by little that were now worth double. "My God, Eleanor," Mr. Harrison murmured, reviewing the documents I had brought. "You have assets totaling over $2.5 million. $2,700,000 to be exact. And James knows nothing of this? Nothing. He thinks I'm a poor old lady living on her pension. He never bothered to ask where I got the money for the expensive gifts I gave the children, or how I could keep the house in such good shape. Why did you keep it secret? Because I wanted them to love me for who I am, not what I have. I wanted them to respect Eleanor Hayes, not the bank account of Eleanor Hayes." The attorney sighed deeply. "And now, what do you want to do?" "I want to create a will that teaches them a lesson, that makes them understand the true value of the name they despise so much." Over the next 2 hours, we designed a plan that would make me smile for months. The will would have very specific clauses related to respecting my name and my origins. Only those who could demonstrate, through documented evidence, that they had honored my memory and my name would inherit. "Eleanor, this is brilliant and completely legal. How long do you need to get it ready?" "A week. But I need you to bring witnesses and have everything properly notarized." I left that office feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Power. For the first time in a long time, I was in control. That afternoon when I got home, I found James waiting for me at the door. He looked impatient, nervous. "Mom, we need to talk." "Hello, James. How are you?" Fine. Look, Candace told me she spoke to you about the investment. We need the money today." "Today?" They weren't even waiting until tomorrow. "James, sit down. Let's talk calmly." "There's no time to talk, Mom. The investors are flying to Spain early tomorrow. It's now or never." "Spain? What kind of investment requires the investors to rush off to Spain?" "It's complicated, Mom. It's Bitcoin and crypto stuff. You wouldn't understand. You wouldn't understand. As if I were too dim to grasp finance. What if you explain what it's about before I give you my money? James stood up, irritated. Mom, are you going to help your family or not? I need $100,000. You have it. In 6 months, I'll give you back $200,000. And what if it doesn't work out? Don't you trust your own son? James, I worked all my life for that money, and now use it to help your family. What else are you going to use it for? Take it to the grave? His words hurt like slaps. To him, I was practically dead already. I was just a source of money waiting to be exploited. Let me think about it until tomorrow. Mom, I'm telling you it's today. And I'm telling you I need to think about it. James headed toward the door, furious. You know what, Mom? I'm done with this. If you don't want to help your family, fine. But don't expect us to keep coming to visit you every month as if nothing happened. Are you threatening me? I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you the truth. You are either part of this family or you are not. You decide. He slammed the door shut. I stood there in my living room, trembling with rage and pain. He had just blackmailed me with my grandchildren's affection in exchange for money. That night, I called Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison, change of plans. Can you have the will ready in 3 days? Did something happen? My son just showed me I made the right decision. Eleanor, are you absolutely sure? Once you sign, there's no turning back. I have never been surer of anything in my life. 3 days later, I signed the document that would change everything. The will was ready, notarized, and locked in Mr. Harrison's safe. James would get his surprise, but it wouldn't be the one he expected. And I, for the first time in years, slept in peace. For 2 weeks, I heard nothing from James. Candace always had an excuse. School activities, social engagements, business trips. Finally, one Tuesday, I received a call that chilled my blood. Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, this is the principal from St. Patrick's School. Chloe had an accident. She broke her arm. We can't contact the parents. My heart stopped. I took the first taxi and rushed to the private school in Scarsdale. The principal, an elegant woman in her 50s, greeted me in her office with a professional but cold smile. Mrs. Hayes, thank you for coming so quickly. How is my granddaughter? Chloe is in the nurse's office. The doctor says she needs to go to the hospital to have a cast put on. But we have a problem. What is it? We can't locate Mr. and Mrs. Hayes. They are at an investors' conference in Miami. A conference while their daughter was injured. I can take her to the hospital. The principal evaluated me from head to toe. These kinds of procedures require authorization. Furthermore, they requested we contact the maternal grandmother first, Mrs. Harrington. Another humiliation. I was the second choice. Have you contacted her? She's on a cruise in the Mediterranean. The rich grandma on vacation while the poor one dealt with emergencies. Then you need my authorization, I said firmly. Well, yes, but there is another matter. The hospital that handles their insurance is very expensive. They only attend to families of a certain socioeconomic level. They will require significant financial guarantees. She was telling me, without saying it directly, that I didn't have the financial status to take my granddaughter to the hospital where the family had their medical insurance. How much money do you need? Between the consultation, X-rays, the cast, and medication. Probably around $15,000. $15,000. For many families, that amount represented months of wages. For me, it was less than 1% of my total assets. No problem, I said, pulling out my debit card. Where do I sign? The principal's face changed completely. She looked at me with a surprise she couldn't hide. Are you sure? Completely sure. She's my granddaughter. At the hospital, while Chloe was being treated, Candace called me, hysterical. Mrs. Hayes! What happened? Chloe broke her arm. I'm at the hospital with her. And who is going to pay? I already paid. Long silence. You paid? With what money? With my money, Candace. How much did it cost you? She wasn't asking about her daughter's health, but the money. It was $15,000. Where did you get $15,000? You told us you had no money to help us. I never said that. It's the same thing. We lost a golden opportunity because of you. I couldn't believe she was yelling at me for spending my money to treat her own daughter. Candace, I think you're confusing your priorities. I decide the priorities. I'm the mother, and I'm going to tell James you lied to us. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there in the hospital corridor, trembling with indignation. I had just spent $15,000 treating my injured granddaughter, and I was being scolded for it. The irony was devastating. When they needed money for their dubious investments, I was selfish for not giving it. When I spent my own money saving their daughter, that was wrong too. 2 hours later, Chloe came out with her arm in a cast. She looked small and scared, but the doctor said she would heal perfectly. "Does it hurt much, my love?" I asked as we waited for the taxi. "A little, Grandma. Thank you for being here. I will always be here for you, my girl." "Why didn't my parents come?" "They are working, sweetie, but they will be back soon. The principal told the nurse that my parents said you didn't have money for the doctor." My granddaughter's words cut through me like daggers. They had spoken in front of school staff about my supposed poverty. What else did the principal say? That Grandma Harrington is the one who has money, but she's traveling. And that you are the grandma? What did she say? The backup grandma. The backup grandma. Like a spare tire only used when the good ones are flat. That night, James arrived furious at my house. He walked in without knocking, slamming the door. "Mom, can you tell me what you're doing?" "Hello, James. How is Chloe?" "Don't change the subject. Candace told me you spent $15,000 at the hospital. She is my granddaughter. She was hurt. But we had insurance. You didn't have to spend your money. And where were you when your daughter needed you?" "I was working. I was at an important investment conference, generating money for this family, while your daughter cried with a broken arm." "Don't judge me. Not everyone can afford to be available all the time." He approached me, pointing his finger. "What bothers me is that you have money hidden. Where did you get $15,000? "I saved it." "Don't lie to me. You can't save that amount on your pension." "James, I've worked all my life." "Exactly. You've worked all your life for this family. And now that we need your help, you prefer to keep the money." I couldn't believe my son's twisted logic. I had spent a fortune saving his daughter, and he was accusing me of not giving it to him for his dubious investments. "James, are you listening to what you're saying? I'm saying you lied to us. You made us believe you didn't have money. I never lied to you. Omission is lying. How much more do you have stashed away? That's none of your business." "Of course it's my business. I am your only son. Everything you have will eventually be mine." His words echoed in the room like a sinister sound. "Everything you have will eventually be mine." He had already buried me. He had already distributed my inheritance. "Get out of my house," I said, my voice trembling. "What?" "Get out of my house, now." "Mom, don't be dramatic." "Go." James left, but before closing the door, he turned back to me. "You know what, Mom? We are done here. Don't you dare go near my children again without my permission." The door shut with a dry bang. I stood alone in my living room, finally understanding that I had lost not only my son, but also my grandchildren. That night, I called Mr. Harrison. "Mr. Harrison, I need to add one more clause to the will." "Which one?" "I want it to be absolutely clear that any person who has attempted to manipulate or emotionally blackmail me for money is automatically excluded from any inheritance." "Eleanor, are you sure?" "I have never been surer of anything in my life. My own son is charging me for saving his daughter. The months that followed were the most painful of my life, but also the most revealing." James kept his threat. He didn't bring the children over. He didn't invite me to family celebrations. It was as if I had died to them. Mother's Day passed without a call. My birthday, too. I saw photos on social media. Ethan graduating, Chloe winning contests, Candace showing off her new BMW. All happy, pretending I had never existed. But something strange began to happen. For the first time in decades, I had time for myself. Time to remember who I had been before becoming the self-sacrificing mother, the compliant grandmother. One morning in July, while having coffee in my patio, I received an unexpected call. "Mrs. Eleanor Hayes?" "Yes, this is she." "This is Chase Bank. We have good news regarding your investments in European funds." "What kind of news?" Your $2,700,000 has turned into $4,100,000. I was completely speechless. A gain of over $1 million. More money than James had ever seen in his life. Are you sure? Completely sure, ma'am. We also want to inform you that we have identified some investment opportunities in cryptocurrencies and tech stocks that might interest you, given your profile as a successful investor. Successful investor. No one had ever called me that before. That afternoon, I went to the bank to review my statements. The executive who assisted me, a young man named Ricardo, treated me with the respect reserved only for high-net-worth clients. Mrs. Hayes, it is a pleasure to serve you. Your investment decisions have been very intelligent. Have you considered diversifying your portfolio further? What do you recommend? Well, with your current capital, we could explore investments in U.S. Treasury bonds, and definitely some positions in Bitcoin which have shown spectacular returns this year. Bitcoin. The same word James had wanted to scam me out of $100,000 for. How much would I need to start? With your level of assets, we could begin with $500,000 distributed among different options. The returns could be extraordinary. Let's do it. I left the bank feeling a strange sensation that took days to identify. Power. For the first time in my life, I was the one making the important decisions. I was the one controlling the money. I was the one deciding the future of my wealth. Over the following weeks, I started doing things I had never done. I signed up for computer classes to better manage my investments. I hired a private nutritionist. I bought new clothes at boutiques on Saks Fifth Avenue where they treated me like royalty when I paid with my platinum card. One day, at the high-end mall near Scarsdale, I stumbled upon a heartbreaking image. Ethan and Chloe eating alone, while Candace talked on the phone and James checked his laptop. The children looked sad, ignored. This was the happy family they had created without me. For a moment, I felt the impulse to approach, to hug my grandchildren, to offer them the love they clearly weren't receiving, but I stopped. I remembered James's words, "Don't you dare go near my children again without my permission." Instead, I made a decision that would change everything. The next day, I visited Mr. Harrison with a specific proposal. "Mr. Harrison, I want to do something with my will." Another change? More of an addition. I want to create an educational trust fund for my grandchildren, but with very specific conditions. I'm listening. I want that when they turn 18, each one receives a full scholarship for the university of their choice, anywhere in the world, but only if they can prove they know and respect the history of the Hayes family. The attorney smiled. That is brilliant, Eleanor. And I want the administration of that scholarship to be handled by an independent foundation. James cannot touch a penny of that money. How much money are we talking about? $500,000 for each grandchild. $1 million total. Mr. Harrison took off his glasses and looked at me with admiration. Eleanor, do you realize you are creating a mechanism that will force your grandchildren to seek out their true family history? Exactly. When the time comes, they will have to choose between the easy money their father promises them and the education their real grandmother can give them. And if they choose poorly, then it will mean I truly lost my grandchildren. And it will be better to know that now than when it's too late. 3 weeks later, the Educational Trust Fund was created and legally registered. The documents clearly stated that the beneficiaries would have access to the funds only after presenting a 5-page essay on the history and values of the Hayes family, verified by an independent committee of historians. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly, not because I had solved my family problems, but because I had finally taken control of my destiny. October brought better news. My Bitcoin investments had yielded a 40% return. My total assets now exceeded $8 million. I was a multimillionaire, and no one in my family knew it. One day, the doorbell rang. It was Rosa, James, and Candace's housekeeper. "Mrs. Hayes, forgive me for bothering you." "What is it, Rosa?" "The children ask about you every day. Ethan has a photo of you hidden away. And Chloe cries because she misses her grandma Eleanor." My heart sank. "Really?" "And the owners argue a lot about money. They mentioned they will have to swallow their pride and ask you for help again." Swallow their pride. As if coming to see me was a humiliation they had to endure for money. "Rosa, would you do me a favor?" "Anything you ask, ma'am." Tell the children that their Grandma Eleanor loves them and will always love them, no matter what happens. I will tell them, ma'am. But wouldn't it be better if you told them yourself? Someday, Rosa. Someday. After she left, I sat in my living room and looked at the family photos that still adorned my walls. Photos of Christmases past, celebrated birthdays, happy moments that now seemed to belong to another life, but they no longer hurt like before. Now I saw them as memories of a woman who had lived for others and lost her own identity in the process. That woman had died the day James forbade me to see my grandchildren. The woman who now lived in this house was different. Stronger, smarter, more prosperous, and definitely more dangerous to those who had abused her kindness. The phone rang that night at 10. It was James. His voice sounded different, less arrogant, more desperate. Mom, we need to talk. Hello, James. Can we meet tomorrow? It's important. Are the children okay? Yes, they're fine. It's about other things. Other things. I knew exactly what other things he wanted to talk about. All right, come over tomorrow at 5. Thanks, Mom. We miss you. A lie. What they missed was my money. But this time, the rules of the game had completely changed, and I held all the winning cards. James arrived punctually at 5, but he was not the same arrogant man from months ago. He looked haggard, with deep circles under his eyes and the paleness of someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. His suit was wrinkled, he had lost weight. The financial success he boasted about had faded along with his condescending attitude. "Hi, Mom," he said, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Come in, James. Would you like some coffee?" While I prepared the coffee, I watched him sit down with the discomfort of someone who no longer felt welcome. His eyes scanned the house, evaluating the value of every object. "How are the kids?" "Fine. Ethan is already in high school, and Chloe is growing up very fast." "Do they ask about me?" James lowered his gaze. "Sometimes, but we've explained that things between us have been complicated." Complicated? As if the problem had been mutual. And how do you explain to an 8-year-old girl that she can't see her grandmother anymore? "Mom, please. I didn't come here to fight." "What did you really come for?" My son sighed and rubbed his face. "Mom, I'm in trouble. Financial trouble. Big trouble." There was the real reason. I wasn't surprised. He just needed money. "What happened?" "The Bitcoin investments didn't go as expected. I lost everything, Mom. The house is mortgaged to the max. The children's savings gone. The credit card's maxed out. And investors are pressuring me. How much do you need?" $2 million. $2 million. Less than a quarter of my current assets. Why do you think I have that amount? What you did at Chloe's hospital opened my eyes. If you could pay $15,000 so easily, you have more hidden. And if I do, then I need you to help me. We are family, Mom. I am your only son, and Ethan and Chloe are your only grandchildren. The same emotional manipulation as always, but now it sounded desperate instead of demanding. "James, do you remember what you told me the last time you were here?" "What?" "That I shouldn't go near your children without your permission." "Mom, I was angry. I didn't mean to. And do you remember what you said about my name at Christmas?" James remained silent, clearly remembering his cruel words. "And what you said when I spent my money saving your daughter. That everything I have will eventually be yours." "Mom, No, James, it's my turn to talk now." I walked over to the cabinet and pulled out my investment statements. His eyes widened when he saw the figures. $8 million? $8,200,000 to be exact. How is this possible? It turns out the woman with the name that sounds like poverty knew a thing or two about investments. While you were losing everything in dubious schemes, I multiplied my assets with pharmaceutical companies, European funds, and real estate. James was speechless, holding the papers with trembling hands. "Mom, this is incredible. With this money we can—" "We can?" I interrupted him. "Who is we, James?" "Well, you and me, the family. The same family that forbade me to see my grandchildren? The same family that made me enter through the service door? The same family that is ashamed of my name? Mom, I told you I was angry." "No, James, you weren't angry. You were being yourself, the man you raised, the man who values money above all else. The man who sees his own mother as a resource rather than a person worthy of respect. I sat across from him and looked him straight in the eyes. Do you know what I learned during these months without you? What? I learned that I can be happy alone. I learned that I don't need to buy anyone's love. And I learned that the Hayes name is worth much more than you will ever understand. Mom, please. The children. Think about the children. I am precisely thinking about them. And that's why I already created an educational trust fund for their college future. $1 million that will be available to them when they turn 18. James's eyes lit up. Seriously? Mom, but there are conditions. What conditions? They can only access the money if they demonstrate they know and respect the history of the Hayes family. If they can write a documented essay about the value and dignity of their ancestors. James's expression changed completely. Are you serious? Completely serious. And the fund is managed by an independent foundation. You cannot touch it, manage it, or control it in any way. That's ridiculous. They are my children. Exactly. They are your children. And as their father, you should be happy that their college education is secured. But I need the money now. And there was the naked truth. He didn't care about his children's education. He only wanted my money to solve his own problems. James, are you going to allow me to see my grandchildren? What? It's a simple question. Can I see Ethan and Chloe, hug them, take them to the park, be present in their lives like any normal grandmother? James hesitated, and that hesitation gave me all the answer I needed. It depends, Mom. If you help me with the money I need, we can smooth things over between us. Are you conditioning my grandchildren's love on my money? I'm just being practical. Practical. Like when you were ashamed of my name. That has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with it, James. You view relationships as transactions. You don't love me, you love my money. I stood up and walked toward the door. It's time for you to leave. You can't leave me like this. I need your help. You don't need my help, James. You need my money. And there's a huge difference. You're my mother. You have an obligation to help me. And you are my son. And you had an obligation to respect me. But here we are. James stood up, furious again. You know what? Fine. Keep your money. But don't expect to see my children ever again. James, my grandchildren will grow up. They will turn 18. And when that happens, they will have to decide between the educational fund I left them and the version of history you have told them. What do you mean? I mean that someday they will know the truth. They will know that their grandma Eleanor loved them enough to secure their future, while their father preferred pride over their education. You're crazy if you think I'll let my children know about that money. You won't have a choice. When they turn 18, the foundation will contact them directly. And then they will have to decide if they really want to know their family or continue living in the lie you have constructed. James stormed out, slamming the door, shouting threats he knew he couldn't keep. I watched him from the window get into his BMW, which I now knew was mortgaged, and speed away. That night I called Mr. Harrison one last time. Mr. Harrison, I want to make one final change to my will. Which one? I want it to be absolutely clear that James Hayes is excluded from any inheritance due to emotional manipulation, family blackmail, and lack of respect for me and my memory. Eleanor, are you completely sure? I have never been sure of anything in my life. My son chose money over love. Now he will live with the consequences of that decision. The will was complete. Revenge served. And I, for the first time in decades, was completely free. The days following James's expulsion were strangely peaceful. For the first time in decades, I had no demanding calls, no visits begging for money, or the constant feeling of walking on eggshells so as not to offend a family that despised me. My routine changed completely. I woke up when I wanted, had unhurried breakfast in my small patio while reading financial news on my new tablet. I had discovered a natural aptitude for investments, something I never knew because I was always busy taking care of others. My Bitcoin holdings rose another 20%, and my European pharmaceutical stocks continued to generate constant dividends that gave me a sense of security I had never experienced. One November morning, I received a call that changed my perspective unexpectedly. Mrs. Eleanor Hayes? Yes, this is she. This is Maria Fisher, from the Wall Street Journal. We are doing a report on successful American women in investment. Your name came up in our research as one of the most prosperous independent investors in the country. I was completely speechless. How was it possible that a national newspaper knew about my private investments? Excuse me, but I think there's a mistake. Not at all, ma'am. Your transactions in European funds and cryptocurrencies have positioned you in the top 10 of American women with the highest asset growth in the last 2 years. Could we arrange an interview? An interview? Yes. We want to tell the story of women who have shown that age is no barrier to financial success. According to our data, you multiplied your assets by 4 in less than 3 years. It's truly inspiring. I multiplied my assets by 4. I hadn't even fully realized the magnitude of my financial success until someone else pointed it out to me so clearly. What kind of interview exactly? A photo shoot at your home, an in-depth conversation about your investment strategies, your advice for other women who want to take control of their finances. It would be the cover of our Sunday financial supplement. The cover. Eleanor Hayes on the cover of a national newspaper, not as a victim of a family tragedy or a social curiosity, but as a genuine example of financial success and wisdom. 3 days later, my house was filled with professional photographers, finance journalists, and complete lighting crews. They had suggested I buy a new outfit for the occasion, so I went to Saks Fifth Avenue and purchased a designer navy blue suit that cost more money than many working people earned in a month. When I looked at myself in the dressing room mirror, I didn't fully recognize the powerful, elegant woman looking back at me. During the interview, I spoke extensively about the critical importance of financial literacy for women of all ages, about how older women often have accumulated practical wisdom that impulsive young people dangerously underestimate, about the fundamental value of making one's own financial decisions instead of blindly depending on others to manage our money and our future. What do you consider to be your best investment so far? The journalist asked me with genuine curiosity. Actually, my best investment was finally learning to value myself as a person, I replied with an honesty that surprised me. All the financial success that followed was simply a natural consequence of that fundamental decision. When the full interview was published 2 weeks later, my phone literally did not stop ringing for days. Major banks offering me exclusive investment products for high-net-worth clients, prestigious financial advisors wanting to personally manage my diversified portfolio, formal invitations to specialized conferences on finance for businesswomen. Overnight, I had officially become Eleanor Hayes, the nationally recognized investor, not Eleanor, the grandmother abandoned and humiliated by her own family. The most surreal moment came when Candace called me. I saw the interview. I didn't know you were so successful. Is there anything I can help you with? James is doing very badly, and the children ask about you a lot. Ethan saw the interview at school. What did you tell them? That there had been family misunderstandings. But he insists on seeing you. Candace explained that they had sold the BMW, were renting in a less expensive area of Queens, and the children had changed schools. Maybe we could talk as a family, she suggested. Candace, do you think I'm going to forget everything just because you now know I have money? But the children will have their educational fund at 18. In the meantime, it is your responsibility to raise them. Ma'am, please. At least let me bring them to see you, as a courtesy visit, so they can see the rich grandma and be nice to me? No, thank you. I hung up, feeling strangely calm. There was no rage, no pain, just absolute clarity about my worth and what I was no longer willing to tolerate. A month later, in December, I decided to do something I had never done, take a real vacation. I booked a suite at a luxury resort in Palm Beach, Florida, for 2 weeks. The cost was equivalent to what I used to earn in 6 months. On the first day at the beach, an older couple approached my table. Are you Eleanor Hayes? The woman asked. Yes, I am. How exciting. We read your interview. My husband and I started investing inspired by your story. At 70 years old, can you imagine? My story had inspired other people to take control of their finances. During that vacation, I received messages from women who had read the interview. Divorced women who started investing their alimony checks, widows who took control of inheritances their sons wanted to manage, ladies who stopped giving money to irresponsible children. My personal revenge had become a manual for empowerment for other women of my generation. On Christmas Eve, while dining at the resort restaurant in Palm Beach, I received a WhatsApp message from an unknown number. Grandma Eleanor, it's Ethan. I got your number from Rosa. I saw your interview and I am really proud of you. I don't understand why Dad won't let us see you, but I want you to know that I haven't forgotten the stories about the Hayes family. I hope someday you can tell me more. I love you. I cried reading that message, not out of sadness, but deep joy. My grandson had sought me out. He had remembered the family stories James wanted him to forget. I replied, "My dearest Ethan, I love you too. When the time is right, we will have a lot to talk about. In the meantime, study hard and never be ashamed of who you are." That night, I toasted alone in my oceanfront suite. Not to loneliness, but to freedom. I toasted to Eleanor Hayes, the woman I had rediscovered after decades. Returning to New York in January, I had a new plan for my life. I was going to use my experience to help other women find their financial power. I was going to turn my personal victory into a life mission. And if my grandchildren ever wanted to find me, they would no longer find the grandmother desperate for their affection. They would find a strong, independent, and prosperous woman who had learned that true love is not begged for. It is earned through mutual respect. My transformation was complete. Now, my new life was beginning. 2 years after that life-changing Christmas, I find myself sitting in the garden of my new house in Westchester County, a property I bought after selling the Queens Ranch where I lived so many years of emotional submission and pain. This new house is smaller but infinitely brighter, with large windows that let the sun stream in freely, just like the happiness that now constantly and genuinely fills my days. My investments have continued to grow extraordinarily during this time. My current net worth exceeds $12 million, a figure that still surprises me when I see it reflected in my bank statements. But more important than the money is the person I have become throughout this process. A woman who is no longer afraid to make big decisions, who doesn't seek constant approval from anyone, and who has finally learned that genuine respect is earned, not desperately begged for. The foundation I created with such care, financially empowered women, has already helped over 500 women over 50 take absolute control of their personal finances. We hold free, detailed workshops on smart investing, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, diversified retirement funds, and most importantly of all, on how to firmly say no when family tries to emotionally manipulate them for money. My personal story has become a recognized case study taught in universities as an inspiring example of personal reinvention after the age of 60. This particular morning, while carefully reviewing the returns on my latest European crypto investments, which had shown impressive growth, my doorbell rang exactly at 11 o'clock. When I opened the front door, I found Ethan standing on the threshold. No longer the shy 12-year-old I remembered with such nostalgia, but a mature 17-year-old, tall and sharp, with the intelligent, determined eyes he had clearly inherited from the Hayes family. "Hello, Grandma Eleanor," he said in a voice that was slightly trembling but determined. "I know I shouldn't be here without my parents' explicit permission, but I really needed to see you urgently." My heart practically stopped upon hearing those words. My grandson, my dear beloved Ethan, was standing there in front of me after so many painful years of absolute family prohibition, seeking me out of his own free will. "My darling, please come in. Would you like some iced tea, fresh coffee, something to eat?" "I just want to talk to you honestly, Grandma." We sat comfortably in my living room, and for several long, intense minutes, neither of us knew exactly what to say to break the emotional ice. Finally, Ethan gathered enough courage to break the heavy silence that had settled between us. "Grandma, next month I officially turn 18. I know perfectly well, my love. I have been counting every single day left. Is what you said about the educational trust fund true? About the college money you mentioned years ago? Absolutely true. $500,000 waiting patiently for you. Enough to study exactly where you want and what you want, whether in this country or at any university abroad." Ethan's expressive eyes immediately filled with sincere tears of emotion and gratitude. "Grandma, I have to tell you something very important and painful. Dad has been blatantly lying to me all these long years. About what specifically, my love? About you. About our family. About practically everything to do with our real history. Ethan told me how he had discovered the truth. First the newspaper interview, then questions at home that Candace and James answered evasively. Rosa helped me a lot. She would tell me things when Dad wasn't around. I also did my own research. I looked up the Hayes lineage. I found historical records of our ancestors in the Midwest. It was all true. And what do you plan to do? I want the Educational Trust Fund, but not just for the money. I want to write that essay about our family. Ethan handed me an envelope. My essay on the Hayes family. I wanted you to read it first. The title was The Real Value of a Name, The History of Dignity I Nearly Lost to Lies. He had researched meticulously. He had reconstructed the truth James wanted to erase. Ethan, this is extraordinary. Thank you, Grandma. But there's something else. I want to drop the Harrington. I want to be Ethan Hayes. I want people to know that when I succeed in life, I am a descendant of Eleanor Hayes. I couldn't hold back my tears. My grandson had chosen to honor my name, the very name James considered a disgrace. Are you sure? Completely. And Chloe wants to see you too. She knows Dad lies as well. When she turns 18, she's also coming for her educational fund. That afternoon, we walked around the quiet neighborhood, talking about everything lost during years of separation. I told him about my investments, the foundation, the women who found strength after reading my story. He told me about his college plans, about studying business administration to manage investments like his grandmother. Grandma, do you regret cutting off your relationship with Dad? The answer came with absolute clarity. No, Ethan. Your father valued money over love. I valued my dignity over manipulation. We both live with the consequences. And what if he wanted to make things right? He will always be welcome if he comes with genuine respect, not financial need. But that decision has to come from the heart. When evening came, I accompanied him to the commuter train station. He hugged me tightly, like he did when he was small. Thank you for not giving up on me, Grandma. Thank you for seeking the truth, my love. See you soon. Forever. That night, alone in my new house, I reflected on the extraordinary journey. I had started as a woman broken by family rejection. I had passed through the fire of humiliation, and I had emerged completely transformed. Prosperous, respected, and most importantly, free. My revenge had been perfect not because it had destroyed James, but because I had built something better, a new version of myself that no longer depended on the approval of others to feel valuable. With my grandchildren returning to my life by choice, I understood that the true triumph hadn't been accumulating millions of dollars, but recovering respect for my own name, my own history, my own worth. The Hayes name didn't sound like poverty. It sounded like fortitude, dignity, the capacity to get up after falling and shine brighter than before. That lesson was the most valuable inheritance I could leave my grandchildren, that they never, ever allow anyone to make them feel less than they are truly worth. Because a person's true value is not measured in dollars, euros, or Bitcoin. It is measured in the self-respect they possess and the dignity with which they face the storms of life. And I, Eleanor Hayes, had finally learned my own value. Have you or someone you know experienced something similar? Share your answer in the comments. If this story touched your heart, leave me a like and subscribe to the channel so this message reaches someone who truly needs to hear it.